Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of a little brisk evening. Today's a Thursday. It's about an hour from the midnight, 11 o'clock. So I've been mentioning this a couple times in episodes, but I haven't done an episode on it. And this is going to be sort of a multi-pronged thing because it's about teaching class, which is a great double entendre. It's class structure, not class. But there's a trick to this whole thing. It has to do with how do they condition us to accept class structure. Because there's numerous ways. There's ways by example. There's ways by force. And it all comes back to that old analogy that we heard in Westworld, I believe season 2. And I've mentioned this several times, is about how do they teach an elephant to be held down by a stake and a rope after it's as big as a house, right? It could pull that stake out in 2 seconds, but it doesn't do it. And it's because when they were babies, they got staked to the ground with a rope around their neck. And as much as they pulled, they could never get away from the stake. And they learn that's how it works. If you ever have a rope around your neck and a stake on the end, don't even try. And that's how class structure works in a big, big way. But what's the principle of class structure? Because you have to learn how to desire things in order to have class structure be extremely profound and controlling in your life. It also is that when you live in a society that says, move, 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 go, 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 you have to do these things, you'll fall right into class structure. But what is class structure as it gets applied to humanity? It's essentially that all the fruits of the world are divided up. The sweetest fruit is at the top. The most sour dirt is at the bottom. And you don't want to be eating sour dirt, so you better do whatever you can to escalate yourself up and up and up. Now, I can actually hear already some people might go, well, that's why socialism is fantastic, because it distributes the good stuff everywhere. Well, that causes huge problems as well. One, we know that society is intellectually flawed to an extent they could never really pull off socialism in the near future. Okay. And it wouldn't be a couple of years, it would be a couple centuries, a couple millennia. And that's because the education to enlighten ourselves is being held by the sweet cherry people on top. They don't want to lose what they have. Now, to further the sort of evil nature of this entire thing, I want you to think about this for a second. What if you were at some palatial mansion somewhere in Europe, one of those many hidden families who literally run the planet, make all the agendas, at least the bad ones. They don't get their way all the time, of course, but you're up there and you're going to be just having a nice brunch with them. And it's very personal. It's just you and a couple of the people, maybe just you and one person. Imagine that person in your brain. Could be a female, could be a male. And you sit there, and it's not a threatening situation. You're just sitting there, and they're telling you, we really just want to know what you think. I mean, you live down inside all this craziness, and we live up here at the top, and we want to hear everything you have to say. Nothing's off limits. There's no penalties for anything you say. In fact, thank you so much for coming up here. But there might be a point in the conversation where you say something like, well, riddle me this, Mr. Banker. Why not just educate the entire world up to your level, and then you will be, in a generation or two, surrounded by intellectuals that will hopefully be stimulating to you, whatever that is. And before you get done asking the question, if you're thinking this thing through as a rhetorical answer, they understand that before you finish the question. And you understand before you finish asking the question that they've already made the decision not to do that for some reason. There's probably thousands of factors here. But I would suggest a few things. One, they want to feel special. How do you feel special in the lower construct where we are? or you do something special. You become a special person. Maybe you have a child that's wonderful. Maybe you make a business that's wonderful. Maybe you just get married to someone that you love. Maybe you just become a giving, empathetic human being. But what if you don't need to do any of that? You have so much money, you don't need to do anything. Well, what might be the next thing that we would have, which is if we go to the perverted side of the lower echelon where we are, it's greed and money. Live for money, 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 and objects, objects, objects. That is the most important thing. You value yourself on how much your car costs, your house costs, your clothes costs, all that stuff. Then you think in a split second, wait a minute, they've got more money than they need. They have inexhaustible money. Nothing in this planet costs too much for them to buy, save perhaps a country. And they even have ways of kind of doing that as well. So before you finish your question, you've almost answered it for yourself. And then the other question comes up, well, I always tell you that they don't want us to take what they have. Part of that's because, think about the square footage of a gigantic mansion as an example. Some sort of like 50-room Downton Abbey home. And there's like 4 people living in it, 6 people living in it with like 20 staff members. They know that the world can't have mansions everywhere. So what is it? What's keeping them from getting us to their level so that they're surrounded by those that they admire? Well, there might be a gigantic level of perversion. What they are entertained by, we will not accept, which, begs the question, if we were, educated up to their level or by the same people that educated them, would we become perverts? It's like, it's a scary thought, right? I just heard a guy say this in the lounge, and I've been saying this to you guys for years and friends for 20 years, which is they keep wondering why all these famous people run off and mess with kids. And not just teenagers, but kids, right? And it usually follows the same path. If it's a male, they exhaust all the females they could possibly have, and that gets boring. So they run to their own sex and they exhaust all the homosexuality they can get. They're not exactly like our friends who are homosexuals. They're just doing it because it's new, it's unique. Then they might regress down to teenage, and then it's down further, and then you get into that Maria Abramovich spirit cooking crap, where now it's S&M stuff, and it leads to sacrifices and all kinds of weird goblet drinking of blood and adrenal They just get to that point where that's the only thing that turns them on. And then they run out. And then what is it? Maybe it's war. Maybe it's getting a report that they orchestrated an event where it's 20,000 people got killed in a month, Maybe it's worshiping crazy deities, and it's not like they necessarily believe it, but they're not exactly as deep as we think they are. Perhaps they're not as incredibly educated as we think they are. They hire people to be those educated people. And because money's under lock and key, no one can just easily take it away from them. It's really funny. I asked a friend of mine from my hometown the other day, I said, did you ever go to the Catholic church in my hometown? Because she wasn't Catholic. She said, yeah, I went to a couple events for like one person got married there, CCD. I visited somebody, during their CCD. Now, my parents got married in this Catholic church because my mom's side of the family is super Catholic at one point. But you would go in this little tiny town, little country town, looks like Disneyland downtown, and then you go to this church and you're in Rome. You're in just a bizarre, marbleized place. It's gothic. You just literally leave this little tiny hometown when you go through those front doors. And then, of course, all the ritual phrases and things just makes it feel like some super well-established church that's just been around forever, right? A lot of you have traveled the world. You've sought out cathedrals of all kinds of different religions, and you walk inside, whether it be a mission in South America or something, and it's just It's just an experience. It can't be denied, no matter if you believe in that or not, right? But now imagine you're these elite people, as we like to refer to them, and they're bored of everything on planet Earth. I mean, they have been to all four corners of this planet. They have done physical things to people that has just blown out the whole spectrum, and they eat it up faster and faster and faster the more that they get addicted to things. Now, I would actually wager that there are folks that have literally no libido at all, and they're into this more occult stuff. You may even have folks that have no interest in any of that stuff, and they just literally accept whatever life they have, whether it be boredom or not. But we definitely know there's a slice that's looking for some sort of bizarre thing to do. Now imagine someone coming up to them. I'm just making this up, but they come up to them and say, look, we got this Druid church. It's underneath Paris. It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen, or, I'm making it up. But there's some door, and they go down inside, and it's just it's huge, and they're like, who built this place? Oh my God. Well, it's been around for 2,000 years or whatever. It's just some place that just, if you think walking into some Gothic church is amazing, this place is that times 50. The little H.P. Lovecraft down there, right? The 7 levels of hell or whatever it is. Doesn't necessarily have to be some sort of Satanistic thing. It just has to be something different. The reason why I'm going through this with you is to help you understand that the folks that are at the very tippy top are going through daily things that we may or may not be able to conceive easily. And I'm not telling you to feel sorry for them at all. I just need you to understand that as we try to apply logic to people who are illogical, simply out of straight boredom, out of perhaps a bad childhood. What is it, that Durst guy? His father brought him out to a ledge so he could watch his mother jump off the ledge on the other side of the mansion they lived in. He just said, I want you to know that your mother killed herself knowing that you exist. That's how much of a selfish woman she was. But, pop, she hits the ground, and then he's screwed for life. He's killed probably 2 or 3 people. Minimum. His brain didn't work right after he saw that situation. H.R. Giger sees a mummy in a museum as a little kid and screams, and his sister made fun of him. And that kicked off H.R. Giger's, I don't know what you call it, man, his spiritual climb through hell. And he happened to be a good painter at the same time. An extremely disturbed guy. Incredibly talented. But if you get into his artwork, you're dealing with satanic stuff on a level that's crazy. Just tortured babies and, I don't know, it's just hard to describe. All the pyramid Illuminati hand stuff. He did the silver hands. Very famous sculpture he did. Now Jay-Z does it. Aren't they special? So class structure comes to us in all these different manners. The very first time you experience it, I think, as a human being is you're a child and you have parents. If you're one of many brothers and sisters, it just depends. Are you the oldest one or the youngest one? Are you the one in the middle? It's interesting that no matter how pediatrician and child psychologists have completely isolated what happens to the youngest, the middle, and the oldest, families don't do anything different to make sure that that doesn't happen. The neglected center one, the spoiled youngest one, the one that's blazing all the trails in the front. First child most typically wants to please the parents. The last child could give a fuck, right? It's interesting. It's not always the case, man. But the families that raise them right, it's amazing. They love each other. They don't fight and bicker. But everyone's a different human being, regardless if you're, blood connected. So what happens after, you're born? Well, you start school at some point. Inside school, we have to have order. And so you have student, teacher, vice principal, who's usually the disciplinary person, and then the principal. You'll have a PE teacher, physical ed teacher. Well, they're responsible for whipping you into shape. and they have to nip at you. Now, you could sit in a class and look at your teacher not paying any attention and then fail your tests, and they might come up to you and say something, but your PE teacher's like, come on, get up, move, run, do some push-ups, throw the ball, whatever it is, right? So you start learning that there are levels of order, levels of disciplinary need that we have in this world. Is that class structure? Not really. But that's the precursor to it all. Because we have to learn and respect various elders throughout our lifespan, it's a big deal. Now, what happens when you start dealing with perhaps your teenage years and you want to break some rules here and there? Then you start thinking about police. Now, I think most people don't have any skirmishes with police in this world. You've never been arrested. You've never been booked. You never had a terse conversation with the police officer that lasted any more than a few minutes, maybe even a few seconds, because I've had a guy pull me over once who was just, oh man, he was angry. And I don't know what was going on. Something else was going on in his life. It wasn't me going 65 on the 280. But then you join the world as an adult. You still might be doing a little bit of school, but now you feel a little more equal to the teachers because you're getting of age. You realize in college you don't have to come to class. You don't. They don't care. You just got to pass the tests. Don't be disruptive. Well, then you start opening your mind to figuring out, okay, where the hell am I again? What country am I in? What state am I in? What city am I in? There's these fluctuating rules that come and go. And then you start, you don't start, but since you've been a child, if your parents let you watch television, which all of our parents did, we start desiring things and wanting things. What's really interesting is that, for instance, this is just crazy now that I think about it. When I was a kid in the 80s, there were two cars that my cousin and I really fawned over. The first was the Lamborghini Countach, and the other was probably more for me, which is the Vector, which is a crazy American-made car. Just a weird car. Just really, really strange. Now, these cars cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 80s. Absolutely unattainable on a level that's unattainable. It's ridiculous. Now you can get some of that stuff used and fix them up these days. But, if you're talking about the equivalent of it today, there's a new Countach coming out. I think it's $2.6 million. No Vectors are ever being made anymore. But they're multi-million-dollar cars in today's money for what you were getting. But here we are, teenage kids lusting after something that's absurd. Now, obviously, it looks cool, so there's part of that. But it's free to imagine, isn't it? And it's not necessarily bad to imagine. It's not bad to make some goals. When I first moved to California, I really, really, really understood class structure, at least on the monetary level. Because when I grew up in the Midwest, there's a north side of town that is the sort of west side of town, which is the more airport community, really nice homes. Lots of space between them, just very beautiful homes. And, you look at that and go, well, those people are also very old. And so they've amassed their money. They got the good jobs. And when I was there's lots of work. Not in what I did, but you could find a job. But I come to California in this old Dodge Charger, man. Now, automatically in Ventura, all the homes are brand new compared to the homes in my hometown, which some of them are like 150 years old. So now I'm looking at this place going, wow, this is like brand new communities, palm trees and cool cars. The Cholo mobiles all slammed and just, coming out of Oxnard, California, amazing. But then you go to the beach and then you drive down Malibu on PCH and you start seeing really expensive homes. And as a child, I was like 18 years old looking at this stuff going, oh my God, I'm gonna get one of those one of these days. I just arbitrarily sold myself that I wanted something that they have, not even thinking about what is it to have that thing. Do I want to live on the beach and hear the ocean crashing all night long? Which I eventually did live about 6 months on the beach, and I found it hard to sleep. Because when the oceans are really busy out there, the tide's coming in, you hear this incredible silence, and then you hear the ocean go bam and hit the ocean. I was the third house back from the beach. I didn't find it that wonderful, and I'm thinking, wow, paying like $5 to $10 million for that privilege and up. Not sure I want that anymore. Don't know. A lagoon would be the best thing for me, I guess. Well, what's going on right now in the world is a lot of class structure education, a lot of teaching you that the rich people and the powerful people can do whatever the hell they want, and you can't. They put down these, mandates for how we must behave outside. But all these politicians went to their private wineries. They went on boating trips, got their hair did, had gigantic parties. As long as it's a liberal base, Lollapalooza, you can do it. But if it's a motorcycle rally, you can't. This is one of the most toxic things that you can allow into your community, is to put up with this crap. But anywhere there's power, there's class structure, sort of subsets to it. I had friends over the years who are police officers, and I work on scripts that have law enforcement in them, and so I'm always talking to folks. Now, I have been in a car once where the person driving was breaking the speed limit like crazy, because this person knew that if we got pulled over, they're not going to get a ticket, because the person pulling them over is a colleague of theirs. It only happened one time in my entire lifetime, and it was kind of nerve-wracking. I had to trust the situation. We were just fine, and it was a silly little thing. But in that realm, I saw that sort of two levels of the law. What happens when you and I break a law, even a small one? Well, we have to, if we get caught, let's put it that way, we've got to pay our dues. You either have to pay fines or do some time in jail. Community service, if you're super duper lucky. Then there's probation, maybe even a parole officer on top of you. But what happens when politicians do it? Vince Foster, who shoots himself in the back of the head, rolls himself up in a carpet, and hides himself in a park because he was going to be investigating the Clintons. Ruled it a suicide. No investigation. Everyone's bought off. Obviously, this man was murdered. And there's a dozen of them, right? Seth Rich, same thing. Handed over some emails, said he got robbed, and all of his possessions were on the ground with him, but he gets shot, and there's a whole bunch of stories about the fact that he actually arrived at the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, but someone grabbed him out of the hospital and killed him. And, who knows? You got all these emails about the Wet Works project on that guy. It's clear as day that if this was some sort of mob and we were a decent government, if we had a decent government and those emails went around about a person that had a suspicious, super highly suspicious death, there'd be an investigation and someone would get nabbed and they'd figure out a little bit more of the truth, if not all of the truth. But when the Hill does it, go pound sand, man. Now, what did I say about those elite people you're having your brunch with? Well, all of their habits turn into gateway drugs in one way or another. Let's just say someone did have a libido, because not everybody does, right? But say one person does have a libido, they mow through their natural selection of perhaps the opposite sex, and they go to the same sex, and they move into teenagers, both sexes, and then they start crawling down into the kids. Then that's not interesting, and you go to rituals that involve all this stuff, drink blood, getting high, all this other stuff. That's the extreme example of, say, a completely perverted person. I'm not sure they're all perverted. Okay, it was a gateway thing. Whatever they had wasn't enough. You see this all the time. When someone has a greedy soul, nothing satisfies them, ever. And they could have $100 million in the bank and be a depressed human being because their greed makes them want $110 million, $200 million, $1 billion. They're judging themselves 24/7. When the reason why they made their first money in the first place could have been a completely serendipitous situation, right time, right place. Again, I had an investor, my last startup. He told us he made about 100 million in the late 70s. He was down to about 70. He said he had lost the 30 investing in bad businesses, so he didn't want to do that anymore. Very smart guy. Very, very smart. In some ways, not so smart, but whatever. He made it up in the end. But he was one depressed dude. Young wife, young little baby girl, already had a couple raised, kids. Seems like everyone else was having a good time around him, but he didn't want to go home. He couldn't be happy in our startup. Just come to work moody, which is just a sign of absolute lack of control of your mind, to be some bipolar person coming in and out. One day, oh my God, I would be like the star of the week. And then the next day, I am a horse's ass for no reason whatsoever. Really strange. Guy's got $70 million in the bank and can't find happiness. So I'm telling you, folks, money so doesn't solve any problems. I mean, enough to retire, perhaps, if that's what you're doing. That's good. Everything's an evolution of greed. The interesting thing that I learned, but I didn't learn the full spectrum of the whole thing, and I've said this before. I grew up in the Midwest, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. Even people in Kansas are like, where are you from? You tell them the city, and they're like, yeah, where is that? 169. So, oh, yeah. And then have some memories. Yeah, I remember somebody from that area. That's how remote of the town I lived in. So here I am in this little paradise, thinking it's not a paradise. I mean, actually, I did know it was pretty amazing. But by the time I got to California, I thought all these kids are the privileged kids. Beaches, surf, Hollywood, LA, all the surf communities, just everything was amazing. And it was amazing. But in my brain, they were the privileged. But I was walking into an adult level skill set job where everybody else from that area had to have a college degree to figure out how to do what I was doing at 18 years old. From just day one, just boom. So I got everything mixed up. I got the cart in front of the horse in my brain. The reason why I mention that to you is this. If you are living even a moderately happy life right now, you are way ahead of those controlling you. And the reason why your life might incur a boom and bust situation, especially the bust that's orchestrated, there's a lot of reasons for the busts, right? Is that they're unhappy at the top. It's that, was it the Vogon captain from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? He calls out and says there's no shore leave. He said, I just had an unhappy love affair and I don't see why anyone else should have a good time. Message ends. Douglas Adams realized that assholes exist like that. And they're all over the place. And they're a part of the infrastructure. And they're always at the top. If they were super duper happy, they'd want the rest of the world to be happy. But they're not. And imagine getting to the point where you're Hunter Biden and the only thing that makes you happy is a whore and a bag of fucking crack cocaine. That's the only thing that makes you happy. And a bunch of booze. A bunch of young minors. That's the only thing that makes you happy. Would it matter that he might have $30 million in the bank in his own name? Would you trade places with that dude and have to keep his regiment? I think you would pay $30 million to never be that guy. Or any of these psychopaths, right? But these are the little fry people, right? When you want to get a job in government, depending on the severity of your authority that you will gain as a result of getting the job, they interview you psychologically to the maximum. They want to find out what you believe. They sniff everything about you, your social media, your phone calls, your emails. They sniff you out to see if you're lying to them. They want to prove and pre-censor you, like Rod Serling says, to make sure that you're going to do what they need you to do, that you're going to have an instinct to do what they want you to do. Now, here's the weird thing, since we're around the halfway mark. If you're watching this show, I'm assuming You don't mind an authority hierarchy to make sure we have laws and that people follow them. And that, if someone tries to kill someone, a cop shows up and tries to stop him, hopefully does. And everybody's safe in the end. Even the person trying to kill people doesn't have to die. And they just go to therapy or whatever, right? Then there's that person that blows all of our minds. The person who grows up meek, aka weak, and wants this class structure over them. They want authoritarianism over them. They love, whether or not they know the definition of tyranny, in the end, if they were to articulate the world that they want to live in, it is a socialistic, robot-controlled, tyrannical thing. And usually what this equals, at least in the people in my family, really just one, that just has always preached socialism for the last 35 years of my life, is that person is a low-effort human being. They do not want to be burdened with researching anything, with learning anything. Everything is a New Yorker magazine away, some article away, some book away from telling you that you're wrong, because that's what's most important to them. Well, okay. So if you're one of those people, and I haven't met anyone in the comments that's not one of these people, but you're a self-motivated person. Doesn't matter what you're self-motivated about. It could be something really tiny. It could be something gigantic. It could be something that fluctuates. Doesn't matter. You know that the more that they install class structure over you, thus authority, or aka authority that can tell you to stop, that's going to interfere with your free spirit doing no harm to another human being, but bringing actually light into this world. Every time you create something, you're reaching up into the universe, you're grabbing some soul light, and you're blowing it out for the rest of us to experience, whether it be a painting, a picture, a poem, a website, a kind phrase. You're bringing truth and wisdom down for us to experience. Not everyone needs to like what you do, but there always will be someone who digs what you do. Always, always, always. Probably a lot of people. So the more left brain you are, the more that you're into sort of this Nazi lockstep thing. You like someone to yell at you, so you have to click your heels and get attention, But that's not just in a military situation, which can kind of be sexy, and we're all working together as a team to protect our country, but more so in the living room, in the business workplace, in your grocery store. I've been watching a lot of the British, I've been watching it over and over and over again, the British comedy from 1973 to 1983, and then there's actually a follow-up in the 90s. But it's called Are You Being Served? And it's about a department store, the Grace Brothers department store, and there's been a little modification to the store where they used to have women's on one floor and men's on the other floor, and now they've mixed 2 women and 3 men together, the floor walker and a manager, and obviously young Mr. Grace. And this is the 70s in England. And they talk about it every once in a while on point out of all the episodes they have, which are dozens and dozens, but class structures in this system. Because in the men's section, there's 3 tiers of reporting. There's the older guy, the middle-aged guy, and the almost middle-aged guy. Over on the female side, you have Mrs. Slocum and Miss Brahms, who reports to her. Miss Brahms is much younger. Captain Peacock is sort of late 40s, early 50s guy running the floor. He has a boss, Mr. Rumble, bald, big ears. And it's always about what they're allowed to do and how they're told, you have to eat at the canteen, you have to get your tea this particular way, you can't go to the restroom unless this is going on, all these rules, all this stuff. But there's an episode about having to wear a certain type of hat, because nobody wears hats in this show. And one day, Captain Peacock walks in with the wrong hat on. Mr. Rumble comes up to him and says, well, you can't wear that hat. That's a hat for me at my class level. You have to wear that hat, and then everyone below you should be wearing these hats. So immediately, Captain Peacock gets all pissed off about, this is ridiculous, And so the next time, this Mr. Humphreys, the middle of the guys, he walks in, not wearing a hat because no one's worn a hat the whole show. Unless they're doing some sort of entertainment thing. And he gets on that dude's case and says, "Where's your hat? You're supposed to be wearing this type of hat." He's like, "Oh, I didn't know we wore hats. You've worn a hat. What's going on here?" But they passed the class structure down as a punishment. Mr. Rumble could control Captain Peacock. Captain Peacock didn't want to be controlled, so he lashed out at Mr. Humphreys, passing down his little point of misery. Captain Peacock felt smaller because his boss was able to control him with the class structure within Grace Brothers. And instead of swallowing it up and protecting those below him, he passed it down. He passed his misery down to somebody else. Mr. Humphrey was too cool to get on anyone else's case about it. I think. Maybe he yelled at Mr. Lucas. I'm not sure. It's those little examples. What do we have? I did an episode called Royal Conditioning. The world is being reconditioned into the monarchy. They're playing two games, right? The politicians are teaching you, hey, we can kill your kids, and you can't do anything about it because we own the cops, we own the judges. They're all going to hell. I mean, they are going to whatever fucking hell exists out there. They've sold their soul the second they take the bribe. But they're willing to do it, so you're in trouble in this universe. They can do whatever they want. So by the time you get smacked down at the pedestrian level, the royal family will be exonerated at the top. And, if you really think about it, you have to ask the question, there probably was a time, almost certain that there was a time when a monarchy made sense for a nomadic group of people to bring them together under one roof. Because not every king has been ruled to be evil, and not every queen has been ruled to be evil. But those that were deemed to be nice typically lost out to some pretty evil neighbors or some pretty evil follow-up kids. But the monarchy was there to give a sense of purpose because, again, we didn't have any cities at one point in this world. Really. Maybe Baghdad or Babylon or something like that. Cairo. But still, what a city was, it was all up for grabs. Just was a lot of people living in one place. So now here's the thing. Just like the toll on a bridge, like I said earlier in a different episode, it never goes away, right? Because everyone gets used to that money coming in. For some reason, they can't evolve away from the narcissistic belief that they must remain in the monarchy to hold the country together, to give it its identity, when America has been one of the most incredible countries ever made, and we never had them. Was it Fawlty Towers, which ran for 2 seasons with John Cleese, who's actually knighted, which is interesting. Remember, he left Great Britain due to centralized socialistic healthcare. I was in a writing class with him, and they talked about it. Robert McKee asked John for permission to say this, and John had to save his wife's life by getting her out of England and getting her taken care of in UCLA. It was a non-life-threatening illness she had, but if it was ignored for 10 years, it might kill her. So he brought her to America, paid the price, whatever it costs. She's fine. They're good. I hope they're wonderful together right now. Okay. But in Fawlty Towers, which is all about a hotel that's just a crappy hotel, it's based on an experience he had with Monty Python traveling throughout the world, and they just had this horrible hotel owner. So they made a whole show out of that, and he plays just this raunchy hotel owner. It's weird energy. It's like super negative energy, but it's really funny. But there was one episode where there's a bunch of whiners in the dining hall, and their service is horrible. Their food is horrible. So it's all justified. Everyone's pissed off for the right reasons. But he's lost his patience. He's being mean to his own customers. Walks out front, and this dude is standing there waiting for a room, and he usually is really rude to the guy. And he was kind of rude for the first 2 minutes until that guy introduced himself as a duke. This is 1975, 76, I believe. Maybe 77 too. Second, the guy says he's a duke. John Cleese's character, Mr. Faulty, freezes and goes, oh, he tells the guy on the phone, go away, bam. And he's like, whatever you need, sir, whatever you need. It shows you these little snapshots of how that was viewed. Now, that's a comedy, but I guarantee you, a real duke walks through the front door of any establishment in England. There's juice there, man. In America, it's usually celebrity juice or money juice. So you don't have to be a celebrity, but you got to be super duper mega rich. And then, boy, you can get anything to happen without paying. That's the weird thing. What a lot of people don't understand is that celebrities milk. And you know what? It's morally repulsive, but at the same time, I've seen it happen where restaurants will not take money from celebrities. They refuse it. They give them the best seat in the whole place. They force it on them. I've been with rock stars where these guys walk up with, and they just literally pull out these rolls of $100 bills, just like I've never really seen one until I hung out with the rockers from the 80s. And, this dude would buy somebody a drink. And they want to say that they bought that person a drink. And they don't even care if that person's fighting alcoholism, They want to have that story, and they'll pay any money for it. I doubt Benihana charged any of the celebrities that are in the front pictures of that place any money for the food. They just said, let me make sure I get a Polaroid of you. All of this education is super stealthy. You don't realize it's happening to you. You don't realize you're being conditioned to accept it. But it's affecting you. And because a democracy is a country that could be voted away, all your rights can be voted away in a democracy. And even if you have a constitution that it's not supposed to be debatable, they find ways of undermining it, just like Magna Carta was undermined. And it's something we have to fight. It's something as human beings we have to exude this lack of lust for things that simply don't matter. Why is it? I've been saying in a few episodes, because it always happens to me, and I'm having these conversations with people. Just had one last night. The gentleman in his late 30s, and he's saying the same thing we all say at these levels. He's simplifying his life. You simplify as you get older, because you realize it was all bullshit. From the moment I put this poster on the wall of a car I'll never own, and I shouldn't buy that car. I shouldn't. Because there's just something else I can do with the money. I can help people with that money. I can build a business with that money, employ people, and pass out the cash 10 times over because we have more money coming in because we built a business with $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million. I could put 10 people to work, 20 people to work, 30 people to work, and then we're going to be bringing in millions per year. Much better investment. But you lust after things. You tell yourself, I'm going to be as good as that person over there. When that person over there doesn't care if you live or die, man. Nobody cares, right? In Huntington Beach, we got a lot of motorcycles. A lot of Harley riders. The fad in the last 2 years is to make your pipes as loud as possible, especially cars, too. All these rice burners. But even the Mustangs are coming out with these crazy glass pack, things that are just so loud. It's nuts, right? Well, you'll be in some shopping mall and there's a little bar in there and some guys will come in with their Harleys. And I love Harleys and I love motorcycles, but I grew up when they made noise, but it was like, the idea was to make a sexy kind of thudding noise and not some blow out your eardrum thing. But let me just give an example where men especially get it all upside down. There's a bar that's like 4 businesses down from my smoke lounge. And these young guys will come in with their loud bikes. And then they have to make a big show when they arrive. And then they start the bike up before they leave. And it's sitting there blasting this horrible thing. We're watching movies and stuff in the lounge, trying to catch up on the day's events. And that bike's out there, you can barely hear. And then they just scream out of the parking lot. it must be like 90 decibels. I mean, it's truly at a painful level. Now, why is that guy, why did he buy that bike, and what is his goal with that bike? Well, I'll give you a clue. It's the complete inverse of what's actually happening. He thinks that that bike is going to attract a bunch of females to him. When if there was any, this is the way I say it in a really crude way, but I would say that if there was a physical attribute of a woman when she is turned on, those attributes crawl back up in their body. There's dry as a bone for miles as this guy's blasting this ridiculously loud claptrap device down the street. He is the repulsion force of what he actually wants to have happen, which is to be, I guess, surrounded by babes and thought to be a big, mean, tough guy. Well, that little analogy is sort of an exacerbated version of what guys do all the time. Girls, I mean, the only thing I can say in Southern California is that every girl seems to go through this phase in Southern California, at least, where they learn about makeup and they just cake it on. They're like 15 to maybe 22. They just cake it on and cake it. It's like every year that goes by, there's another layer. There's more eyeliner. And then around 22 to 25, if they wise up, which most of them do, they put barely anything on. By 30, it's usually pretty balanced. We can see how well their brain has matured to understand their true form. Now, guys, they'll keep that motorcycle thing going until they're 60 years old. They'll die alone in a grave, right? I want to instill in you this little test you could do throughout the day, and it will blow your mind. It'll make you grin. It'll make you laugh, which is the following. And we do this automatically already, probably if you watch this show, but make it a game and it becomes more hilarious. And if you can pass it to people that you know really, really well, you guys can have some really fun conversations, which is the following. From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to bed, and do this for a week or two, study every single time you run into a piece of marketing that is trying to make you lust for an object. And instead of allowing it to come in and just say, it's those boring ads or, whatever, I don't want that. Think about what they've done, especially if you have a little spike of interest, to make you want something. Because every time you want something, what do you have to do? You have to kind of reach out to get it, right? And eventually you reach out so far, you're bent over a barrel. And that's when they all, and they get you. You want to be an upright Homo sapien? The less you give a crap about any of that stuff, the better. And you'll find that, when you mature to a certain level, again, it has no bearing on your age whatsoever. I know people who are in their 20s and 30s that are above my intellect, man. It's just fantastic. At least their maturity is amazing. But the more you get sort of into the groove of it all, one, you don't really let anybody know you want an object. But two, instead of impulsively buying it, you think it through. You're like, do I really need that? Today I think I need it for this reason, but I'm going to force a week to go by. And I'm going to see if that reason still exists in my mind. And then I'm going to think it through to see if there's any competing products that might be a little bit cheaper that have exactly what I want. Because you also look at an object to go, well, it's got all those other features I don't need. Maybe I should just find one that has exactly what I need and see if I can save a little bit of money. You make it a game. You remain in control. You aren't bent over a barrel trying to buy something you can't afford. Happens to every single one of us. Trust me, I've been there, man. The process of simplification is to upright yourself out of that algorithm. It's just like the movie They Live, man. Obey, consume, procreate. The money, when you held money up, it said, this is your God. It's all those lusts that make class structure have its power over you. Now, what's interesting about truly taught class structure, like it was in Are You Being Served, which has a bunch of racist stuff in it. Oh my God, they did blackface in that thing. They had a very stereotypical Japanese guy in there, stereotypical Arab people. I mean, it was a different time, let me tell you. The fact that this stuff airs on BritBox blows my mind, right? But now, someone who just walks up to you and says, I am better than you, you have to do what I say because that person over there and that person over there and that person over there said I'm higher than you. Now you got some problems, especially if you view yourself as potentially their equal. But now think about a common law, God-fearing population agreeing to this sort of satanic hierarchy. It makes no sense, right? What kind of person are you? Be running around telling other people that you're better than them to the extent that you can command them. You can command them to stop doing this and do that. Ooh. I mean, when you're a parent, you're responsible for your kids. That's a bit different. Any one day they could kill themselves, with some foolish behavior that you need to teach them is life-threatening. Way different, right? Now, when it comes to a company, it's a little bit different. There's a vision within a company, a set of goals in a company. There could be one goal, there could be 20 goals. The second you're down from the very, very top or the board of directors, you may not understand the full big picture of it all, so they have to communicate it to you on a need-to-know basis only because of the limitation of time. Good company will definitely give you extra time. You're like, look, I just want to understand this. I'm totally on your side. But as soon as you walk out of these paradigms and you get into the real world, then you're asking yourself, how are you able to do things that are illegal and get away with it? How is it that if you go to jail for killing somebody, it's 1 year and, for any of us, it'd be 20 years or life? I just watched a Charles Bronson film. I forget the word name, but it's something Papers, starts with a V. And it's about him. It's a true story about the mob, where he was in the mob in the 30s, and it goes all the way up to the point he has to rat on a guy who's trying to kill him. And so in the end of this particular movie, this won't ruin anything at all because it's a true story. He thinks he's going to get a plea deal to get out and get some witness protection and all that kind of stuff. In the end, he does get some help with his family, but he doesn't get out of jail at all. He actually dies in prison. They gave him 15 years, and he dies 7 years into his 15-year term because he was an old guy when he went in. But the guy who was trying to kill him for $100,000 dies 6 months earlier than him. But what happens today? Well, what happens today is that as long as you go all the way up to that huge echelon of crime and you can finger somebody else, they do these plea deals. And the whole rationale is, well, if they don't plea, we don't get those other, bad influences off the street. So we sacrifice one guy's entire punishment cycle. It goes away. They don't serve any time whatsoever. I mean, maybe they serve time while they're doing their plea deal. And that's not trivial. Trust me, I understand that. But you might have a guy that's killed 25 people or more. And he never serves a single year for those murders because he's fingering a bunch of other people. Seems a little weird, doesn't it? I mean, we've been taught that that's the way it works. We've been taught that that's a great compromise. Yikes, not sure. Maybe reduced sentence or something, don't know. And to think that they get released and somehow there's a bunch of surveillance on them or something so they can't do anything bad. What I'm trying to say is this is a systemic problem of mankind's mind, right? All this comes out of a screwed up human brain. You are probably winning more at the bottom or the middle or close to the top than these people at the very tippy top. You are a more balanced human being. The eye of the needle that you have to go through to reach whatever celestial finale or next stage that you believe in is going to be a Lincoln Tunnel as compared to this true eye of a needle for them. If there's any reincarnation until you get it right, well, they're all coming back. And you're not. Now, when we think about, because I talk about it all the time on the show, why is it that almost categorically everyone who runs the world is a fucking psycho? Why is that? Why? I mean, there are a few countries out there that have their shit together, right? Sweden didn't do anything as a result of this last year and a half, and they're fine. There is, 4 presidents that in different third world countries that refused to go along. All 4 have been assassinated. I think Haiti's dude was one of them. Okay, so why are 99.9% of all these people awful? Well, think about it this way. I want you to have one side, think of a really great dream that you've had where it has a really good world in it, and there's no worry about this kind of stuff. And then think about being in our world where it's sort of my episode, What You Need. What part of the dimensionality of our existence are you studying if you're in your dream world, which you get every single night if you dream? Or perhaps when we pass away, the afterlife is reminiscent of what a dream is like. It's free-flowing, it's obtuse, it changes, it's never boring. You might get spooked for a couple seconds by a monster, but the next one you're in some euphoric, beautiful, flat earth plane with a rainbow and unicorns, farting ice cream. Well, it's nice. That's a nice thing. But how much maturation would be going on for your soul in that realm? You'd be in a Turkish prison. You'd be like loving everything. You'd just be like, oh, give me more. Boom, boom. But over here, in our world, where we are today, we are able to split the atom of the human condition, of really what consciousness is capable of, and what is required to sort of unscrew the world. What's interesting is that, I've told you that this depopulation thing has just plagued them. Because class structure basically disappeared. And of course, they see the bottom of the pyramid starting to widen quite a bit, right? I mean, if you really want to think about how many people exist in these layers of a pyramid, you damn near have a pyramid that's kind of going up in a bell curve, right? It's an exponential bell curve from all angles. And that tippy top thing would be so high in the sky if it was a monetary value in your pocket. It'd be such a high tower. Like the Washington Monument, we wouldn't be able to see it from even probably 2 steps down. That's how much money and power these people have. I've told you folks a couple times, when I came to California, I had an unbelievable manager from the very, very beginning of the first company I had. Then I had a bad manager. Then I had a great manager. Then I had a bad manager. Then a great manager. It was this weird cycle. It was almost like, again, like a heavenly Greek theater thing that was going on, like the Greek gods saying, okay, he's going to have this, and he's going to have this, and he's going to have this. It was just bizarre. There was no 2 and then 1, and then, it was weird. Okay, here's what's awesome about that. Believe me, I didn't like having bad bosses, racist bosses, guys who just had serious personal problems. But when I became a manager for the very first time, my first management job was managing 2 of my buddies. So that was sort of pseudo-management. It was more project-oriented management, just making sure we all went through. But they were aces, so it was no big deal. When I became my first manager of 6 coders, I was able to be what I believe to be a great manager because all I did was emulate the ones that I had that were fantastic. And everything that the bad bosses did, I made sure I never did. And where they were sort of maybe a bad communicator, I was trying to be a good communicator. And it seemed to work out really, really great. The reason why I mention that is not to gloat or anything. It has to do with the fact that because we are abused at our level, it makes it crystal clear who they are. It makes it crystal clear how much more advantage we have with the sane mind than their psychopathic minds. And what's fascinating about a psychopath and a sociopath and a crazy person and an evil person is I don't think they can see it. I think that their regressed primate brain can't see it. They're almost feral with money. It's not that they can't hire someone to do something very sophisticated on their behalf, which is what I do think happens. But it's all based on a class structure and people buying into it. So what's crazy about it is that at the bottom part, we're not really, at least in America, I'll put it that way. I don't know about your country. In America, at the middle class and lower class level, because there's 3 different levels to each one, right? Lower, middle, upper, lower, middle, upper. We really do treat each other totally the same. I mean, the only thing that would happen is if someone's a jerk, then we might call them out or something, right? But how many of you have seen like a G Summit? How many of you have seen these Council on Foreign Relations meetings and someone from the IMF talk or the World Bank talk? You can see it. Did you know that at a G8 photo, you're not allowed to wear a black suit unless you're at a certain level of authority? And those pictures where Putin and Trump and whatever, the Prime Minister of England, the Chancellor, whatever, they don't get to wear black as a man, at least in a suit. I don't know about the females. I think the women usually wear something pretty. And I learned that because there was an event where someone wore a black suit and got close to these individuals, and they're using the suit to trigger a conversation. So Putin might walk up to someone in a black suit and say, "Oh, well, I don't know who you are. Who are you?" And if you're like, "I'm the water boy," he'll be pissed that you're wearing a suit that's out of your class structure. Now, in terms of a function and a protocol for a function, maybe that's not quite technically class structure, but it is, in my opinion. But because they subscribe to it at the top of the pyramid, maybe whatever, the first 3 layers of that up there, it's like almost the Parameridian capstone on the Washington Monument, right? Okay. That causes problems for us because our politicians are answering to these people through some means, right? What I think the takeaway is with this sort of conversation is, first and foremost, I want you to have control over your mind. So again, do that test. It is them convincing you through marketing, which is the biggest conspiracy group on planet Earth, right? One or more people conspiring against one or more people. That's a marketing department, selling you shit you don't need, making you lust after things. Pharmaceutical marketing is criminal conspiracy, trying to convince you that a common cold is going to kill you. That's criminal, right? But they'll fuzz out the words because the justice system is easily bought off. Well, it's easy. We'll just buy off that judge. We'll threaten him. We'll take the other judge, cut him in 100 pieces with his kids, put him in the trunk. And so the next judge who gets the case is going to do whatever the fuck we tell him to do. That's how they roll. Because there's too much of this obeying at the top. No one investigates crime. The second that someone at that high level doesn't get a crime investigated properly, where Hillary Clinton can walk away from all the Arkansas shit, all the white water stuff, from her emails, when they get to walk for stuff that would put you in jail, if not get you executed. Then it just opens up the floodgate for hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of these events where these people go, "Woo, I finally became a senator. Give me that 6-pack of kids, because I know through case law study, anyone at my level can't ever get put down for this kind of stuff." And I know it's kind of happening here and there, but you want to control you first. What's beautiful about this whole thing is simplification means you're living on a lot less expenses per month. If there's something that's just bleeding inside your mind, it's like, okay, I want to simplify, but there's still that one thing I want. Well, that can also be that sort of thing that Ross Perot talked about. Saving up for the thing you want to buy is actually more interesting than the thing being in your possession. And take it from a guy who's worth $3.5 billion or something. He's right. He's 100% right. But imagine that. You keep all of your daily chores and loves in life for half the money that you're spending today. And that's what simplification does for you. Your car goes from, oh man, I'm going to impress everybody with this vehicle, down to an A to B location thing. And if you say, well, I won't be able to get the right kind of woman if I don't have the right kind of car. And I say, any woman that'll like you for your car, a woman worth having. Once you open your mouth and you have a great brain, trust me, man, you're groomed. You take care of yourself. There's always someone out there for you, right? So we fix ourselves first. We get 100% control to the best of our ability, right? 100% of what's potentially there. And then you start seeing it everywhere. You start seeing class structure within your system. And what's interesting about it is, I've talked to some of my UK friends and I say, like, okay, and, again, most people I know aren't the slightest bit smitten with the monarchy and that kind of stuff. But they still knight people. Wow, really? United States, they give you a little rainbow ribbon thing with the medal on your chest, right, to buy you. Handing out status. I mean, just think about it, man. But there's also opportunity. You wonder why all these celebrities who still tour with the disastrous Biden presidency, he just got 13 guys killed today. It's just the beginning of those deaths. Left behind billions of dollars worth of stuff. And there's still like Ben Affleck speaking on his behalf, right? You think that dude gives a crap about this old guy that's embarrassing the living shit out of our country? You don't think he's sitting home right now going, oh my God, there's hundreds of photographs, if not thousands of photographs of me going, hey. They're doing it because it gets them, one, all the sexual harassment cases these guys have on their back. It was a Jimmy Fallon, and it was a Horatio Sands. They have a big sexual harassment case against them for soliciting a 15-year-old girl at an SNL party. Why do you think that's not getting any press? Because he's on the inside. He's the host of the Tonight Show. He's been doing whatever they say to do on his show, and he'll continue doing it. And in exchange, there's 2 levels of law. He's going to walk free for that thing. All Kevin Spacey's accusers are dead. Remember him doing those crazy videos of Frank Underwood? I mean, I'm a super fan of his acting capability. Don't get me wrong, man. And as long as he messes around with adults, I don't give a crap what he did. But a few of these folks said that one guy said he was a minor, and the other one said that the other 2 said they didn't want any, and he kept going. All right. I'd like to know what parties they're going to even have access to this guy. But let's just say, they're all on the up and up. Dead. No investigations. Now, what if I had 3 women on me accusing me of some horrible stuff? It's all confirmed. I was there, and it's just looking really bad. And they all 3 die, and I do these weird, impersonation videos just prior to their deaths, where I'm basically saying to your face, you can't stop me. I'm with them. And boy, if you come after me, there's going to be penalties. And then they're all dead. You don't think the press would be on me like crazy? You don't think I would be immediately arrested to investigate their deaths? Come on. But if you're in that circle, you can do whatever you want. Imagine how much we empower these people when we allow these crimes to go away. We let the people who really did these FFs in the world go scot-free. What does that do? That encourages them to continue doing it. And again, it's all fun and games until the mall that you're in is the one that's used for one of these events, because the bad people need a distraction. And it's your kid that takes, 308 through the head. Never get to grow up anymore. You're no longer a parent anymore. It's over. Because you let these people and these class structure things keep going. You let criminal activities keep going. You let the narrative go dry. All the evidence go dry. Through repetition, they're able to brainwash you down into at least giving up. It happens to all of us. But we really, really, really need to kink their chain, baby. Don't we? Hopefully there'll be a change here soon. Soon could be a year. I don't want it to take a year, but soon it could be. It looks like everything's going to hell in a handbasket to a level that's like, if nothing happens, then all the adults are dead. And then, geez, I don't even know what you do to take back control. If the people have to do an uprising, that would be awful. We have paid, as Americans, trillions of dollars into a system that's supposed to do this job for us. They're the ones that are trained. They're the ones that are young. They're the ones that are capable of just following their oath and their creed. So anyway, let me know what you think. This one's been bothering me recently. Just, again, it's all kicked off by the royal family obsession. And again, just reaching out to old shows and old movies. I'll tell you what, man. What's awesome about watching old television shows or old movies, especially television shows which are episodic, is that you see the way it was. Sometimes you see wonderful things with the way it was, and then you see horrible things, or just sort of like, whoa, that's how we got here, right? So I would encourage you to go back and look at how goofy we were as people. What's funny is this Bronson movie I just watched. It was made 1972, and it was, sort of a precursor to The Godfather. Very low budget, but decent, But the idea was that you saw you will listen to and see this dialogue of what they were trying to, make it out to be bad guys, because cursing inside films was just really starting in the late 60s. And so they were using some bad language here and there. Never dropped an F-bomb. It was interesting because I think, when I was a kid, if you put an F-bomb in a movie, you got an R rating, and it's just not worth losing that ticket sale, But all we have done in this world is become harder and harder and harder as human beings. More terrified, more guarded. And that's the blessing of a big city mentality. And that's a tongue-in-cheek statement. Go into a small town, oh my God. People talk to you sitting at a diner as long as you don't come in looking like Marilyn Manson. Go look at Soul Train dance line videos from the 70s and early 80s. And tell me that's a group of people who hate each other and are about to stab everybody. No, they were so happy, mixed, total melting pot of races and what have you, all getting along, enjoying music, man. No, that would be horrible to go back to, right? Like, again, when 45 became president, one of my friends posted this ultra unprofound statement on Facebook. He said, 45 is going to take us back 40 years. It's like, good. Were you alive 40 years ago? Because I was, and it was fucking amazing, man. Was everything perfect? No. But take the DNA of what we learned in the 21st century and take the love that we had in our hearts 40 years ago, and trust me, the world wouldn't be so screwed up. But we can't reverse time, can we? We can only forge a new future. So on that note, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. What's interesting about it is I tell everybody to go and search on topics that you dig. There is one episode that I have been asked to record at least half a dozen times, and the reason why is that the title of the episode was, Do Atomic Bombs Exist? And most people are looking for the catchphrase, nuclear weapons. And so that's one that people have a lot of interest in. It's up there, but that's why you go to the website, go to the search field, type in one word from what you're looking for. If you come up with no results or you don't find what you're looking for, try to synonym that word, or get your thesaurus open and just figure it out, because it's probably up there. And man, if you find a jewel I haven't done, let me know. A lot of you have contributed some great leads for me for season 7, or probably what's going to be kind of like the midterm between 6 and 7. Not go anywhere. Going to make you episodes all the way through the year, so don't worry. But on there is everything. All your video. BitChute has got everything uncensored. I did just add our podcast to Amazon/Audible. It should be interesting to see if they police the content, because it only took like 30 minutes and I was up on their new service. They acquired some company that allows us to put it up there. And hey, if we can use big tech to spread our word uncensored, well, gosh darn it, let's do it. It's just an RSS feed. But you can get it directly from the website if you want. We have all the social media up there. The only big tech social media that we use is Twitter and Facebook. Again, I'm doing more Twittering lately, tweeting. I mean, it says twit right in the title of the company. And Farcebook is okay, but it's a locked group, so you can get in there and you don't have to worry about your boss seeing what you're doing or your friends. It's all private. And believe me, they won't find the site. It's so shadow banned, it's crazy. Subscriptions are up on Facebook, or not Facebook, YouTube. And I would say to you, just to try to break their algorithm, we need 100 more to get to 5,000. And so I would say some of you have multiple accounts on YouTube. If you can log into those other accounts and subscribe, I want to see if we were to create a cascade, post it on Reddit, whatever the hell you think community would dig it, and just cause them a problem. Because every time you cause a huge swell of subscriptions, they run their anti-subscription technology, and it lets me record for a future date proof that they were algorithmically getting rid of you. I've got pictures of the subs and how they do what they do, and I think I've got one image that I can prove in a court of law that that's what they're doing. So we'll see where that goes. No one's ever going to make any money from these people, even if they succeed, because they're just going to BK out of it, or they'll just close the business. But, whatever can put another straw on the camel's back would be great. There's an all-new remastered Season 1. Season 1 is a lot different. I was way too close to the microphone. But again, the most popular episode in the entire series is on this channel, and that's episode 165, which is a moon episode. I think 520 is better, but 165 gets viewed, 50 times a week at least. It's up in the 30,000s. So again, 520 I think is better, but all the moon episodes, you can find them in 2 seconds on the website because there's a category list on there. There's a store with some fun t-shirts. Again, I will be creating more t-shirts. I'm kind of really busy right now working on Season 7 intro and a bunch of other architectural stuff. So we'll, it's just got to be awesome. So it will blow away the intro to this show. Trust me. The other one is that we have a couple ways to donate to the movement. PayPal and Patreon are my two primaries. Again, Patreon is growing. Thank you guys so much. Again, with Patreon, you get the episodes before anybody else, almost like 95% of the time, unless there's been a giant delay and then I push it out really fast, but that's super rare. Yeah, you also get your name in the credits, and depending on how long you've been on the Patreon dole, you and I can get a FaceTime chat as well. So we'll personally talk to each other, and I'll get to know who you are. So I'd love to meet some of you folks. And for all those of you, just stick to the program. Thank you so much for just being here. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now. What's a beautiful, what